The secret and brilliant plan: sink a Titanic look-alike, rescue the passengers, and claim the insurance money. But they forgot to rehearse better. On the night of April 14 to 15, 1912, the English ship Olympic struck an iceberg and sank in the icy waters of the Atlantic Ocean, killing 1,500 people in the worst maritime disaster of all time. No, you didn't hear wrong. The greatest maritime tragedy in history did not end with the Titanic but rather with the Olympic, the twin ship of the White Star Line shipping company. At least that's what proponents of the conspiracy theory involving the two vessels believe, including the British author Robin Gardner, who wrote the books The Titanic Conspiracy, Cover-Ups and Mysteries of the World's Most Famous Sea Disaster, and Titanic, the Ship That Never Sank. The story goes like this. The White Star Line allegedly switched the names of its ocean liners to intentionally destroy the Olympic, which had suffered serious damage after colliding with the cruiser HMS Hawke in September 1911. As the Olympic was not insured, the company reportedly devised a diabolical plan: swap the identifications of the two ships, send the Olympic out as the Titanic's debut, sink it in a safe location, rescue passengers and crew, and collect the insurance payout contracted for the Titanic. From then on, the true Titanic would continue its career as the Olympic. Ingenious, isn't it? But, as it's known, everything went wrong. Adherents of the theory point to various pieces of evidence suggesting that the sinking was premeditated. The first is that the millionaire J.P. Morgan, who financed the White Star Line and thus became a partner, backed out of boarding the Titanic just before the voyage. At the time, he justified the cancellation as superstition regarding inaugural voyages. Morgan also allegedly halted the shipment of artworks in the Titanic's cargo holds. Why would the owner of the virtually unsinkable ship, as it was advertised, miss the historic voyage of the then largest ocean liner in the world? The conspiracy theory suggests that Morgan and his partner J. Bruce Ismay were the masterminds behind the plan. The motive? Insurance money. The White Star Line was facing financial difficulties due to competition from the Cunard Line, whose ships Lusitania and Mauretania had dominated the maritime lines since 1907. In the event of an accident with the Titanic, the insurance company would pay £750,000, a sum that would cover the losses from the Olympic collision and still leave the company with a brand new ship to connect Europe to the United States. To simulate an accident of this magnitude, the entrepreneurs would need the collaboration of the captain of the Titanic, Edward J. Smith. The script was perfect. The Titanic would sink at the end of the 5th day of the voyage, near the American coast. This way, the crew would have time to send a distress signal and await rescue. Everyone would be saved. If Smith didn't know about the plan, say supporters of the theory, how could he make such a basic mistake, letting the Titanic sail at high speed in a region surrounded by icebergs? Especially considering that Smith commanded the Olympic during the incident with the HMS Hawke and might have felt indebted to the bosses. The more radical ones claim that he received a generous sum of money. What Morgan and Ismay didn't expect is that the accident would happen 24 hours earlier than planned, due to Smith's haste. Perhaps because the captain was compelled by Ismay to speed up the Titanic, to showcase the potential of the new ocean liner to passengers and the press, a version recounted by director James Cameron in the movie Titanic, starring Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet. In this case, it was the magnate himself who literally let everything go down the drain. In Gardner's suspicions, the author of The Great Titanic Conspiracy, there were more people involved in the hoax. Captain Stanley Lord, who was supposed to be another conspirator, anchored the merchant ship Californian at a prearranged location in the North Atlantic. When the Titanic hit the iceberg, colored rockets would signal the time for Lord to simulate the rescue of the English transatlantic liner. However, another vessel was on the course of the accident and was collided with by the Titanic, causing both ships to sink. That's right. According to Gardner, the Titanic did not collide with an ice block but with one of the rescue boats hired for the plot. This third ship, never identified to keep the White Star Line's plans secret, had its lights off and went unnoticed by the Titanic's crew. Startled by the unexpected collision, the English officers changed course to the south, moving away from the Californian, stationed to the north, and did not respond to the white rockets fired by the rescue boat. To make matters worse, a fourth ship, having no connection to the story, passed near the Titanic at that time. Captain Smith thought it was the Californian coming to rescue them and did not launch the rockets. The result of these unfortunate coincidences, the accident caused a breach in the hull, the Titanic sank far from the rendezvous point, and the rescue was delayed. Not everything in this macabre plot is mere speculation. Survivors indeed saw lights near the disaster site, which could have been either from the Californian or that unknown fourth ship. Another theory suggests that the lights might have come from a German submarine following the Titanic. As a matter of fact, it is well documented that 706 passengers were rescued by the English ship Carpathia from the rival Cunard Line, which was sailing 96 kilometers from the Titanic. The Carpathia arrived before the Californian, which was 31 kilometers away from the sinking location. In their greed for money, the conspirators left other clues. There was a rush to switch objects from the true to the false vessel as the Titanic's launch date approached. Another fatal mistake was made: the Titanic set sail with fewer lifeboats. The intention of the businessmen was that no one would need to use them, as they planned to sink the ship near the rescue teams. But what about the passengers and the numerous people present in the port during the maiden voyage? How would they not recognize that the Titanic was, in fact, the Olympic? One theory was that the newspapers of the time did not have photos of the brand new Titanic and used old photos of the Olympic to illustrate news about the ship. Other connections have even more radical theories, attributing the sinking of the Titanic to the German Navy and an Egyptian mummy. One of them suggests that, to test the strength of its fleet, the German Navy positioned a submarine behind the Titanic. When the ship was about to hit the iceberg, the submarine allegedly fired a precise torpedo. Advocates of this version believe that an ice block would not be capable of damaging the Titanic's hull enough to sink it. They also claim that the lights seen by survivors before the rescue by the Carpathia, for hours after the accident, belonged to the German submarine. Two events during World War I are cited to bolster this theory. On November 9, 1915, a German submarine sank the Californian near Greece. On July 17, 1918, the Carpathia became the target of German torpedoes off the Irish coast. Connections, strange connections. Another theory suggests that the sinking of the Titanic may have been a curse from the mummy of Princess Amenarre, who lived about 3,000 years ago. Journalist William Thomas Stead allegedly hid the mummy in a part of the transatlantic ship designated for the crew and journalists and told some passengers about it the night before the accident. It is said that all the people who had contact with the mummy since its discovery died shortly afterward. Therefore, everyone on board the Titanic would be condemned. According to reports, the mummy and its sarcophagus had uranium radiation, a mineral that caused hallucinations and dementia, and this may have been one of the reasons why Captain Smith did not pay much attention to the warnings of icebergs ahead of his route. Stead died in the sinking of the Titanic, and the mummy was never seen again. And you, do you believe in any of these theories? Could it be that we still don't know which ship sank and why? That's how conspiracies go. Someone always has an interest in making us not believe in them. These and other cases are showcased here on the Mystery Machine channel. If you enjoy this type of content, please subscribe.